The Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Well, Randall Flagg, I'm so sorry the Bruins couldn't force a Game 7, but welcome to the program. That gives you free time tonight. So welcome to the program. I'm Scotty Roberts. I'm your host. This is the Intrepid radio program right here on my YouTube channel, which makes it less a radio program and more just a broadcast. Since we are no longer on a radio station, we are a podcast officially right now. And that's all you got to know about that, because we've already talked about that before. So welcome to the program. And if you are over in any place other than my YouTube channel, you are not getting the full benefit of the chat room, which is only in the YouTube channel. So come on over, experience the YouTube channel and the fellow Intrepheads over there. You will have a good time. There's always good conversation. And by the way, folks, tonight, since we are no longer broadcasting on a radio network, we are open to being able to take callers all through the show. Now, if you call in, it doesn't mean I will necessarily pick you up right away. You can call in. You will be put into the host queue down kind of backstage where I can see you. And I'll bring you in when I can. I'll acknowledge you when I can. And the chat room link is in the description down below in the YouTube window, or I'll copy it here and I'll just paste it into the chat room. And so you've got it if you're chatting. There, boom, it's right there. And you can call in really at any time during tonight's show. Now, we have traditionally tried to do paranormal shows on Friday nights. For the most part, there was a long swath of time we did that. And then other topics drew us off. And tonight I'm going to kind of recap some current event, political topics. I hope that it's something that you're going to enjoy, that you want to participate in. So come on in. Well, boy, we've only got 3 viewers in the chat room tonight. So that's a very low number. Doesn't mean that's all of you that are out there watching, but come on into the chat room, chat, join us. Let's see what's going on. And I thought we had a bunch more than that at the beginning. Ryan, good evening. You said hello in the chat room, and Susie Q said hello over there. We had Randall Flagg over there, and I thought I saw Grumpy Stack. I might be wrong. And a couple of others of you. So here we are. Let's roll it out. How is everybody tonight? What do you think of this week? How do you think it's been? I was trying to line up a guest for tonight, a good friend of mine that you would all recognize, but he never got back to me. So that didn't happen. I had another good friend of mine for tonight that I was trying to get for tonight as well. She never got back to me. So here we are. It's just me tonight, and which is the norm for this show. So we're going to talk, and I'm going to invite all of you to take advantage of that call-in link. You can call in anytime during the show and discuss any of these topics with me that you'd like to talk about. But tonight, I wanted to cover a little bit of current event because I don't do that as often as I could anymore, and I want to do that tonight. And I was looking at something in particular. If you have all heard, here, let me get this graphic off of there. There we go. You've all heard about the, well, maybe you haven't. You remember, and I was kind of explaining this to my 14-year-old son tonight. We were talking about some current events, and I was trying to make it as interesting for him as possible. However, it probably, some of it, I think, wasn't quite as interesting, but he surprises me sometimes, and he really kind of latches onto some of the current events in the politics we're talking about. I think he's craving to learn some of this stuff, not as a going concern, but when we talk about it, he seems interested. So I was trying to explain to him what's going on with Joe Biden signing an executive order this week to disallow the Congress, specifically the Republicans, from subpoenaing the interview that he did with her, HUR, who was the special prosecutor, special investigator, let's put it that way, that looked into Biden and his documents scandal. And so when I was talking to my son, I tried to back this up to give him an idea of what was going on. And do you all have an idea? Remember last summer, Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago was raided by the FBI because they said he was holding classified documents. Now, the confusion in all of that was not that Donald Trump was out there saying, "Come and get me, copper, I'm keeping these." No, it was that he had people from the National Archive that visited and told him, "Here's what you need to do with what you have, put them under lock and key." Then later, which he did. Then later, they asked him if he would turn some of those back over, and he didn't refuse, but he said, "Let me look through what I've got." And he, when he was president, said that he had declassified everything because he had the power to do that. And yet they have the transcript we can't hear and how bad he sounds. Exactly, Randall Flagg. So I'm building up a little background, as I did for my son, on why we're at that point. So now Trump's got these documents. He gets raided by the FBI. All this hue and cry out there about Trump has illegal documents. He needs to go to prison. Of course, the same old crowd. And what does Joe Biden say in an interview that same week? I can't remember what network he's on. I want to say he was on CNN. Might be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But he was on one of those talking head interviews. And he said, pretty much he thought, well, that's pretty stupid, he called it, for any president to do that. And Donald Trump, he was pretty much decrying Trump for having classified documents and that no president should do that and get away with it. Well, what happens within a month or so? They find that Joe Biden has tons of classified documents, even more so than Trump. They weren't under lock and key in a special vault like Trump was asked to do by the National Archives. They were in his garage in stacks of boxes. And so, well, now the same people that were calling for the imprisonment of Trump over this, the indictment of Trump over this, are not crying the same tune for Biden. Well, if Trump gets immunity, then so does Biden. Well, they were denying that Trump should be allowed to have immunity. And we all saw the political ping pong going on there. And the problem is, and as I was telling my son this afternoon, I said, the problem is that, and we were driving somewhere, so we had about 15 minutes where we were talking about this. I said, the problem is that President Trump declassified these documents while he was president. He had the right to take them. He had the right to declassify them. All it really takes for a president of the United States to declassify a document is to go, I have this document. Poof, you are declassified. He didn't have to tell anybody. He can declassify it. So what he had on his possession was declassified documents. And that's pretty much all there is to it. And he has to declare them declassified. Maybe if somebody wants to see it officially, he's got to put it in writing. He doesn't need anybody's approval to do that. What they were fighting him on was whether or not he did this before he was no longer president or after. Yes, and he has the only one. He is the only one, Randall Flagg said, who has the power to do that. A vice president can't do that. A senator can't do it. A congressman can't do that. It's only the president of the United States. But what do they find out about? And Trump was only the president for 4 years, and he took boxes with him of documents he declassified. Now, Biden, they find, has decades worth of documents. Joe Biden didn't become president until 3.5 years ago, 2.5 at the time that this came up about him to counter what happened to Trump. And he's got documents going back to when he was vice president, documents going back to classified documents going back to when he was vice president, to when he was a senator, things that he took, slipped him under his coat and took him out. And so they're saying that it's the same thing as what Trump did, yet they're saying Trump should still get in trouble. But now they're saying he isn't. Now, this is why they appointed the special prosecutor. I don't know if they called him the special investigator. I don't remember his first name, H-U-R, Her. And he's the one who did all the interviews, did all the investigation work. And he's the one who a few months ago came out and announced, well, yes, Joe Biden had classified documents and he was in violation. However, we are not going to indict him because we believe that he is just an old man who is losing his memory. In other words, senile, losing cognitive, and it does no good to bring him to trial. Well, that's great for not getting indicted, but the left went absolutely apeshit over this. Why? Because they've been trying to foist on America that no matter what you think you see about the president, that he is fit. He's the sharpest blade in the closet, or broom in the closet, or whatever, the sharpest broom in the closet. What do we hear? Kareem Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, always saying he's the smartest, most intelligent, most with it, sharpest person in the White House. And I look at him and I go, wow, you've got to have a lot of really god-awful, stupid people then, or terribly mentally oriented people. Sharpest spoon. Yeah, he's the sharpest spoon, Randall Flagg said. Yes, that's it. Hey, Jason. JP is here. We're going to have to talk to him in a bit, get his take on his move and stuff. So, by the way, the lines are open now that JP is here. I just wanted you to know that. So the lines are open all throughout the show tonight. So let's continue talking about this. Roy Palvido is here. Burton and Stanley Booksellers. Good to see you, Roy. And so what have you got now? You've got the former president who is being indicted for it. You've got the current president who they're saying is not being indicted for it. And you've got the special prosecutor, the special counsel, who said he's too old, he's too frail, his memory is too frail to indict him. So we're not going to do that. And then you've got the White House and all the left up in arms because, well, Joe Biden, this is the narrative they've been feeding us. This is what's called gaslighting. When the whole country can look at Joe Biden and know that he's cognitively challenged, that his cognitive functions are failing, that he's dropping into senility, that he has his sharp moments. I did just hear somebody today say, about the debates that are coming up, they said, Donald Trump should not take Joe Biden for granted. Don't brush him off so easily because he has his sharp moments. But it all depends on how much they drug him up and pump him up with an adrenaline shot in his ass or whatever it is. So you've got the whole country can see this, and we know it. We recognize what it is. And yet you've got the left, the Democrats, the White House trying to sell us a bill of goods that Biden is just fine. He thinks just hard. He's really the one in charge because he's the sharpest sword in the sword closet. So, and I don't buy it for a minute. None of us do. So here you've got this gaslighting going on. So what do you have? You've got the Republicans have now in Congress that have said they have subpoenaed the transcripts or the tapes of the interview that Her did with Biden. And this leads to a question I brought up with my son Sam, or I'm going to bring up with you now. Remember Jen Psaki, the day after Biden got into office, she said, "This president is going to be the most transparent president, the most transparent administration in history." Let me ask you a question. Yeah, cocaine is a hell of a drug, Randall. Let me ask you a question. Do you believe that the Biden administration has been the most transparent administration in the history of the country? Do you believe that Joe Biden has been the most transparent POTUS in the history of POTUSes? That's what they claim they're doing. Yet you've got Congress has subpoenaed these documents, these tapes, these transcripts, because they want to look them over. Well, guess what Joe Biden did? At the behest and the bidding of the head of the Department of DOJ, Garland, the Attorney General, told him sign an executive order that says you gave me executive privilege extended to me. And so Joe Biden signed this week an executive order saying he had executive privilege over those, and he extends that executive cover to his head of his Department of Justice, Attorney General Garland. Now, let me ask you something. Is that the most transparent administration? Is that the most transparent president in the history of administrations and presidents in this country? And I've got some information I want to get into about that. But this is what I talked to my son about today. And I said, I want to talk about that. And amongst other things, there's other things I want to talk about tonight as well. But this is the one that kind of rose to the top when my guests weren't available or didn't get back to me. At least not in time. I haven't heard from them. So this is the topic I wanted to address tonight. And let me tell you, some of my listeners, some of you might support Biden or at least support the left. That's, your political ideology is your political ideology. And you must have your reasons for doing that. And maybe some of you who support the left don't necessarily support Biden. Now, I have heard theories on all of this and what's happening with Biden. For instance, you take this, what I just talked about, set it aside for a second, talk about the Joe Biden taunting Trump regarding debates. Now, I don't think Trump was sitting there, with a lip curled and going, "Why, that bastard, of course I'm gonna. No, Trump was like, "Fine. I told you, anytime, anywhere." Trump told him a long time ago, "I'll debate you." And Trump, the same way, I think within an hour, got back to Biden and said, "How about these dates? I accept it. I accept your terms." Now, the terms, I think they're still negotiating some of the terms. It's like the no audience. These things are always done in front of an audience. Of course, I think JFK did his without an audience, if I'm not mistaken, 60 years ago. But also, they want to make sure no teleprompters, no earpieces, so your people can relay information to you. Because then the debate isn't between two people, it's between a person and his staff. So no earpiece. Now, this has always been the case. You aren't supposed to, none of these debates, the rules have been you can't wear an earpiece, you can't have a teleprompter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can't have somebody feeding you information. And Trump has said, "I'll do the two. I think he's still open to leaving it the way Biden's asking for it, but he says, I also want to add a third and maybe a fourth as we get closer to election date. And he said, so far, the ones he has moderating, the two that Biden wants, are people that are friendly to his camp. Now, you could do that. You could say, if I'm in charge of that, and then I want him friendly to my camp, to the way I think. His news outlets that are liberal or leftist or Democrat oriented, he wants them to be the moderators. And a lot of people around Trump are saying, and people on the right are saying, no, let's get some unbiased. Now everybody's biased. Everybody's got a political opinion. But can you think of any? Name me some moderators out there you think in the news media that would be good moderators that aren't coming from a already predisposed biased network that is predominantly slanted in one direction or the other. So Trump has said, yeah, I'll do those two, but then let me do one with Fox or maybe one with Epic. I don't know who he's announcing, Newsmax or anybody. So Susie says the charges should be clear before they're made. Oh, you're discussing something here. Yes. The questions, and there should be no questions given to one party or the other ahead of time. That's also a rule of these debates, is that one party should not have all the questions given to him in advance so he can study up on them. The purpose for debates was to see, what does your candidate know? Not what can he study up on for 2 weeks before, while the other person doesn't have the opportunity to study up on it. So first name is Ben. Ben Hur. Is it Ben? Really? Ben Hur? I don't think I heard that his first name is Ben. You're either pulling my leg or that is his name. I don't know which. Anyway, cheers. I got to take a drink. Roger Rabbit is here. Welcome, Roger Rabbit. Good to see you, brother. Nice to have you in here tonight. And everybody who's made it, if I haven't said hello to you tonight, hello. Hello, hello. Yuck, yuck, yuck. If you all know what that's from. So that was a dead giveaway. So this is the situation we have. So we know this about the Biden administration. Is the Biden administration, do you believe, being transparent? Biden will get destroyed in a debate, says Ryan Gale. I think you're right. Or will he? All depends on who's asking the questions, who's moderating. They want the mics. Biden said, I want the mics shut off when your time is up, because they know Trump is notorious. Trump will tear him apart in a debate. Now, here is the question I have about that. And I've heard this theory put forward. Do you think the left is setting up their own guy for a fail? Did they want him announcing? You'd think his handlers, if they didn't want him doing a debate, he wouldn't have announced it. He wouldn't have taunted Trump and asked for a debate. Certainly not in the tone that he did, taunting him with, we hear you have Wednesdays free. That was a reference, obviously, to the fact that the current trial he's in is off on Wednesdays for the last 3 weeks. So, with the taunt, and Biden says, I beat you in 2 debates. Well, that's highly subjective. That's from their point of view. I saw the debates last time. I don't think Biden won any debates. He was certainly stronger mentally back then than he is now, and we thought he was weak then. So, you've got Biden saying, I beat you in 2 debates. I'll debate you anytime, anywhere, and blah, 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 blah. It was a whole 15 seconds, I think, or 17 seconds. And did you notice he couldn't, and I think this is important for mental cognition. You notice in that 17 seconds that there was 5 cuts in the video. Boom, 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 cuts. You could see that it had been cut. Biden couldn't get through 17 seconds of an announcement like that without it being cut on the average, 3 seconds. He'd make a statement, cut. Another statement, cut. I'd be curious to know, just for my own, and I'm not saying this to be unduly teasing or poking at Biden, other than to say, I know how film production is done. I do some of my own banners or my own bumps when I'm announcing, and I don't want to have cutaways. If you look at this YouTube channel, I've only got one up there, Inside Scotty's Shorts, I think it's called. Shorts that I'm doing. And I haven't put any other ones up, but I did one on the money that was granted by Congress to go to Ukraine and other places 3 months ago. And I did that all in one take, and it's about 3.5 minutes long, something like that. I'm not mentally as sharp as I used to be. I forget things easier nowadays. One of my greatest fears is that I might lose my mind one day. Because there's times you see me do it on the show. I'm sitting and I'm talking away and I'm going, what was that? That thing, that guy, his name, the blah, 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 blah. I've noticed that it bothers me, makes me a little nervous sometimes that I'm already forgetting names and stuff. I don't think I'm losing my cognition, but I couldn't imagine being in a position in life where I couldn't talk for 17 seconds and not hold my train of thought or have to cut away after every statement I make. So this is what he did. Yeah, exactly, Susie Q. Beat him when? LOL, she says. When did Biden beat Trump in a debate? So anyway. Oh, by the way, did you know that Italian television, maybe not big in our neck of the woods, but they just did, it was like the equivalent of their BBC, SNL all put together, just came on. I just saw it this morning. Some spoof, the parody of the United States president, of Joe Biden, and his handlers walking him up to a podium with the White House in the background, and he can't hold his balance. He's tripping, and everybody clears off to let him speak, and he turns and tries to shake somebody's hand and puts his. This is the worldview of the president of the United States. That's just Italy, but if Italy's doing it, Germany's doing it, France is doing it. Anyway, all that to say, everybody's aware that Joe Biden has not got all his mental capacity. Now, the theory that I've heard put forward on this is that they let Joe Biden do that because they know Joe Biden's going to get trounced in 2 debates. You notice both these debates are scheduled before the Democratic convention, where they name their candidate for president. Everybody knows it's going to be Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Whew, what a dream team. And there are people out there that still think they're going to be best. I got to tell you, again, I don't care what your political ideology is, but if you believe those two are the best president and vice president we could have, I would question your cognitive awareness. Now, some people would say the same thing about Trump. I've got good friends who don't like Trump. You don't have to like Trump. I happen to support him, and I'm going to vote for him. But there is a side of me that says, God, I can't wait till we're out of this era because I want better candidates. I think Trump, now don't get me wrong, I think he's going to do fantastic as the next president. I think he's going to do things that need to be done with the country. However, having said that, I would love to see new blood come in. Wouldn't you love to see? Now, you might not like the people I like, but let's say on the right, you have a DeSantis or a Tulsi Gabbard or a Tim Scott or whoever. There's Amanda. There's Amanda. She has come into the chat room. Good to see you, Amanda. It's always nice to see you. I haven't talked to you. We got to have a talk sometime just to catch up. I have known Amanda for, 25 years. Has it been that long, Amanda? Good friends. I love her. Absolutely. Always have. So it's nice to see you here. It does my heart good when I see you here. Thank you. So you may or may not like Trump. You may or may not like Joe Biden. I am not here to tell you who to vote for, though I would if I could. Longer. Yeah, it has been. That's right. It has been longer. So, and I showed some of your pictures, our pictures doing the taming of the shrew on the streets and stuff like that the last time that you came into the chat room. I don't know if you were around that late into the show, Amanda, but that's what I did in the after show. So, regardless of who you want to see, I think Trump is the best choice. That's my choice. You can dislike my choice. You don't have to dislike me, because if you dislike my choice, you don't have to dislike me. I've got people that have disowned me because I chose to vote for Trump. And I know people that have disowned other people that have voted for Biden. I got to tell you, there are times I look at friends of mine that I think they're dead set against Trump. And it makes me, I automatically think, are you voting for Biden? Oh, no, I'm not going to vote for him either. I think, well, phew, at least you came up a peg for me, knowing that you aren't voting for Biden. But all of this to say, from a more, I don't like getting into the name calling. I don't like getting into degrading a candidate or the president simply because I don't like him. That's something I don't like encountering out there when I discuss things with people or debate things with people. I look at certain people that are out there and they post stuff, and everything is always negative or talking about the orange turd in the office and blah, blah, blah ad infinitum. And I say, well, that would be like me calling Obama the purple eggplant in office when he was in office. I said that once, and somebody turned me into Facebook for racist comments. I said I wasn't making a racist comment. I was just saying that's my take on that. If you're going to call him orange this, I'll call him purple that. Why is that a good thing? What is the basis for good discourse when we do that? If we're actually trying to learn something from each other. So, I don't go out of my way to insult in barroom brawlish fashion the president of the United States. I still respect the office, even though I don't respect the man. And as you have heard me say on this show a million times, I feel bad for Joe Biden. I think he was pushed into doing what he's doing because they appealed to his ego. Everybody talks about Trump's ego, yet what ego elements factored in to Joe Biden's decision to do what he's doing? Joe Biden had already earned his legacy as the vice president of the United States, whether you liked him or not. He was under one of the most charismatic presidents, Barack Obama. I didn't like a thing about Barack Obama politically or ideologically, but I would have had a pint with him at the bar and arm wrestled him for the tab. You get to pay now because I beat you in arm wrestling. That's fine. And Joe Biden, I didn't agree with anything that he brought along with his political ideologies, though there are things he said 25 years ago that I agreed with. And I went, guy's not wrong. And so all of that pushed aside, I look at him now, and my theory, I'm getting to it, is that they are setting Joe Biden up right now for a fall. Why? Because they cannot lose face by saying our president, who we've been pushing on you, selling on you, gaslighting you on, really is mentally debilitated. He really is cognitively declining. He really is this, that, and the other thing. They can't admit that. Why can't they admit that? Because they would have to admit that they were wrong, or that they were lying to everybody, lying to you, lying to me. So I think what they want to see is the people step up and say, Joe Biden just got creamed by Donald Trump. absolutely bashed by him. And they want to see the people, and they will put forward a new candidate at their convention. Joe Biden, we're going to pull him. He's going to give his farewell speech, and maybe even we'll have him announce the new presidential candidate on the left. It's going to be somebody like Michelle Obama. It's going to be somebody like Gavin Newsom. It might be somebody we don't even think is ready to do that. It's not going to be Kamala Harris. I can tell you that. They want her gone just as much as people want her gone. So that's my theory, is this is all a big setup to work their way into gracefully saying we have to release Joe Biden because you know what? After all this service he's done, after all the good he's done in this first term, he is just getting to the place where he's got to retire. And so we're going to retire and we're going to put somebody else up. So that's really what I think is kind of behind this whole thing of them wanting to allow him to debate President Trump. But here's this. It was Kasich. You remember John Kasich? He was one of the candidates running last time against Trump. And he was, after the elections, of course, he dropped out. He didn't get any votes early on. And he went to MSNBC. And he kind of stuns another MSNBC. I'm sorry, he goes to MSNBC for an interview. I misspoke. That's my cognitive unawareness hitting me. He was on a MSNBC interview, and he said there's a real possibility that Biden isn't even going to be the candidate. And Kasich himself said, I am just beginning to wonder. And so he was an anti-Trump candidate, and he was the former Republican governor of Ohio. He's an MSNBC political analyst, not a host. And he said he stunned the host, Jose Diaz-Balart, on Friday of last week by speculating that President Biden may not end up being the political party or the Democratic Party presidential nominee. He just might not be. And that was today, I'm sorry, not last Friday. And Kasich cited polling data, people's feelings on the economy, the president's poor public speaking events, and his fear over becoming upcoming presidential debates to say there's a strong chance that the party is going to choose someone else to run against former President Trump. He says, I'm starting to wonder, Kasich says, that there's a real possibility that Joe Biden will not be the Democratic nominee. And prompting Diaz-Balart to question where the former governor got his information. And after noting that Trump is currently beating Biden in all the swing states, in all those polls, Kasich continued. And by the way, there's another bit of gaslighting for you. You always see Biden, we're up in all the polls, Biden says. That's nonsense. They're telling we're up in all the... They're not. He's down in every single one of them. Frankly, my personal opinion, how the fuck can Joe Biden be up in any poll unless you have misinformed people being asked? That's Chris Rufert. Good to see you, brother. Welcome to the chat room. Hi, friend Scotty. Are we so last? Here, let's see. I don't have my glasses on. I need old man glasses. As some of you maybe don't know this, I'd have cataract surgery. I thought that only happened to old people. Go figure. So, hi, friend Scotty. Are we so lost that real statesmen don't have a shot in politics anymore? That's it. I don't like him, but I don't think Bill Clinton could be elected today. No, he couldn't. I don't think he could anymore. I think both parties, says Annette Keenan, would benefit from choosing other candidates. And I think you're right. However, I will say this. I think Donald Trump has the ability to fix things. Remember when he ran the last time? And Amanda, if you're still there, and Annette, you know who I'm referring to, Fitz, Mark Lazarchuk, good friend of ours. He said to me during the first Trump election, 2016, Mark said to me, keep in mind, and we were talking to other people, he says, Trump is not the feel-good president. And I've mentioned this on the show before. We are not voting. I did not vote for Trump because he gave me the warm fuzzies. I voted for Trump because he was the GSD president, the get shit done president. I wasn't voting for him to tickle my socks, my feet. See, that's what I do. Tickle my feet, to tickle my fancy, I was going to say, but who talks like that anymore? He tickles my fancy. But I didn't vote for Trump because he made me feel good about myself or made me go, I got the warm fuzzies now and that nice little warm pit in my stomach because of him. I voted for him because I thought he was a businessman who would get shit done, the GSD president. That's why he got voted in. He got voted and he ran because everybody was saying we need somebody who knows business. We need a businessman to run for president. Trump ran, he won, first time around. Not according to Hillary Clinton, though. Remember, it's bad taste and it's wrong, and you got doxxed everywhere and canceled if you were talking about President Trump didn't win the election or won the election and other way around, that Trump didn't win, that Trump did win, and that he was cheated on or was stolen. What'd you have Hillary Clinton do? The whole time that after she ran against Trump, that's all she talks about. It's how the election was stolen from her. I had a tingle up my leg. That's it, Dr. Bauer, Professor Bauer. Tingle up my leg. It's better than a tingle down my leg. So, yes. So anyway, that is saying that we are lost, Chris Ruffert, that we need some real statesmen to run. We need to stop the politics of personality. But I think we're so far into it that I don't think we're going to recover from that. So let me get back to this, talking about John Kasich here and what he had to say. Kasich, he went on and he said the fact that the economy is not turning around, the fact that people are saying it's a terrible economy for them, the fact that they've said they don't have any confidence Joe Biden can fix it, his public appearances have not been very good, and now they've agreed to 2 debates, which is as out there as you can get. He then proposed this hypothesis about Biden not getting the Democratic Party nod, to which the host asked, Governor, where is this coming from? And Kasich insisted he based the statement on his conversations with a lot of people on the poll numbers. I see what these numbers are like, Jose, he said. I mean, you had a poll, that Siena poll, indicated last week, not only did they think he couldn't fix the economy, Biden, and they put Trump way ahead of him, but they also said they're not sure if he's as competent as Trump. And do you notice how the left works overtime trying to tell us all how incompetent Trump has been, how crazy he is, how much he was losing touch? You put Trump side by side with Biden, it's not. Trump will run circles around Biden. He said, I mean, these are really significant numbers, said Kasich. The former Republican presidential candidate is the one that's in the lead right now. Former president, I should say. Also, Biden claimed that the inflation was skyrocketing when he took office, despite the data showing the exact opposite. I saw him say it. Biden said, when we came in office, we inherited the finances of the day we took office. Inflation was at 9%. Bullshit. Inflation was at 1.4%. when he took office. So where does this information come from? Where is he getting that from when Biden says stuff like this? And the problem is the Biden administration is okay gaslighting the public. Oh, I know we know the facts say that, but this is what really is. It's what they're saying behind the scenes. So despite being a Republican, Kasich pledged his support for then presidential candidate Biden in 2020. He appeared in a pro-Biden ad to tell voters that America is at a crossroads and not to go down the wrong road with Trump. And Kasich also endorsed Biden for re-election. He's a fool, but that's what he did. The former governor also argued Biden's public appearances just aren't working and mentioned frustration over Biden's campaign, talking about Bidenomics all the time and saying, oh no, everything's been great, is what Joe Biden says, when Bidenomics is a huge failure. So do you feel that Bidenomics is making your groceries cheaper? Has it brought down the price of gas? No, because it's not Bidenomics that would do that. It's stepping up our oil production domestically, which is what Trump did. I heard Trump say the other day something about, wouldn't you like to see gas at $1.64 again? Which was high even at the time. I remember when it went over $1, we were all like, oh my God, it's gone over $1. Wouldn't you like to see gas under $2 a gallon? And I know I've brought this up before, and it just dates me and lets you know how old I am. But back in the early 1970s, when we had the oil shortage, and you had mile-long lines of people lined up at gas stations to get gas. During that time period, in 1970, I want to say 2, it might have been 73, we had a little Sinclair gas station, the one with the little green dinosaur. See a few of those around every now and then. That at the Sinclair station, while gas was 14 cents a gallon down at the Shell station, we could go down to the Sinclair station a mile down the road, and they had a special on Friday, 11 cents a gallon for gas. Could you imagine your car right now? Now, if you've got a standard small car, your car takes about 15 gallons of gas. Could you imagine filling your tank? What's it cost you to fill your tank right now? At anywhere from $3.29 to $3.89 a gallon. It's costing you what? $35 to $50 thereabouts. Back in 1973, when we got gas for 11 cents a gallon or 14 cents a gallon, that was the going rate. That 11 cents a gallon, you could fill your tank for $1.50. You could still fill that same tank. It's unbelievable. And we used to go there to save money. Now, I wasn't an adult. I wasn't driving. My mom used to go over there and buy gas. I get it for 11 cents instead of 14, saving 3 times 20 gallons. She saved 60 cents by going to the Sinclair station. So, and that was big time because my mom was a waitress back in the early 70s making something like $1.35 an hour plus tips. So there you go. Cheers. I got to take a slug of this. Leaded fuel. Yes, it was. Leaded fuel back then. Let the lead flow. So, Kasich goes on, and he expressed fear over Biden's potential debate performances, noting that I don't know how that's going to go, and I'm just beginning to wonder. And the host, Ballard, acknowledged Kasich's point, though he didn't have much to add beyond saying your opinion is an important one. The important thing is to listen to everyone's concepts, opinion, and thoughts. Well, unless it's Donald Trump's or somebody who supports him. So, yeah, that is problematic. So that is something that's going on right now. I think there's the theory in my book that the debate thing, everything that's going on is the left slowly letting out the line and letting Biden do what he's going to do because they're planning to change him out. And I think Biden's probably been under, Biden is saying a lot of things that would not get you reelected. And I think he doesn't care because he probably already knows. Well, you know what I think too has happened all the way along? His people are really letting him believe he is as fantastic as he thinks he is. And that's too bad because I don't think he's aware enough to know any better. And Joe Biden certainly is disenchanted with him. You can tell body language. But like I said the other night when we mentioned some things, I got to wonder what Jill Biden has been promised by the left. I wonder what Joe Biden has been promised by the left to continue doing what he's doing, to go along with them. When he started running, I said, they're making him some kind of offer to do what he's doing. And I just wonder what Jill has been offered in return, just to be there. Oof, that's a tough one. So one of the other topics I wanted to hit tonight was this, and I started out talking about this, was how there's now 2 House panels that they've cleared contempt resolutions against Attorney General Garland over that first thing we started talking about tonight, the fact that the House, they want the documents, the transcripts, the tapes or films if they exist of Ben-Hur's. Is it Ben-Hur or is it just her? I think it's something else, her. I don't think he's Ben-Hur. That would have stuck with me. But and this is what my old man mind does. I go, oh, Ben-Hur. Did you know I have a first edition Ben-Hur that I found in the thrift store? It's got one coffee ring on the back of the book cover. Other than that, it's perfect. I think it's over on that shelf. Somewhere. No, it's right here. Hold on. It's right here. Where did I just see it? Right here. And this is a little book interlude. It's book time with Scotty right in the middle of the other conversation. This is a book I got at the thrift store. Ben-Hur. You know what I got this for? A dime at the thrift store about 8 years ago, something like that. And it's not a first edition. I'm sorry, I misled you at first. It's not a first edition. It is, right here, written in the flyleaf. It says, to Effie from Sophie, August 6th, 1907. And there you can see that in that old style of handwriting from 1907. But this particular book, I think, is a second edition that came out. Well, it says right here, New York and London, Harper and Brothers, publishers, 1906. So the year before that. This might be the first edition. No, it was entered according to an act of Congress in the year 1880 by Harper and Brothers, the Library of Congress. So I don't know what edition this is. It doesn't say inside the cover. They didn't do that as much back then. This is the 1906 edition of Ben-Hur. I got it for a dime. Do you know what this book is worth? I looked it up, and this is all that's on the back. It's not coffee. It was a little mold, a little water mold. And it's old mold, so it's fine. It hasn't destroyed any pages of the book. The spine is still good. Everything is good about this book. I looked it up, and this book I got for a dime at the local barn thrift store. This is worth $238 in the condition it's in. So there you go. That's my copy of Ben-Hur. I'm not going to roll back over there. I'll just put it down right here. Anyway, Barbie D, She said, I missed you. I'll catch up. I'll catch the replay. Have a great weekend, everybody. Well, where were you, Barbie D? Where the heck were you? I'm glad you came in to tell me you missed us. So let's look at this thing really quickly about the two House panels that they've cleared contempt resolutions against Garland. The Attorney General has failed to turn over subpoenaed recordings of Biden's interview with the special counsel Hur in two House committees. Two House committees. And Republicans on two House committees voted to hold Attorney General in contempt. I'm getting feedback. I got a news story playing somewhere. Guys, hang on. I got to see where that's coming from. I don't know if you're hearing it, where it is. It's not there. Hold on. Something's going on. Something's crazy. I'm getting feedback, and I don't know what window. I've got so many windows open. I don't know where it's coming from. So hang on. Let's see. It's got to be right here. It's got to be this connected to this. Yeah, it is. It's Jim Jordan talking about this particular news story. Sorry about that. All right. So it's a Robert Hur, by the way, JP. Robert Hur. Bobby, Robbie Hur, Hur. So Republicans in these two House committees voted to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress on Thursday night, despite President Joe Biden's intervention to block them from obtaining his recorded interviews with special counsel Robert Hur. Now, I got a question for you. That's the reason I asked, do you believe that Joe Biden has been the most transparent president in the history of presidents of the United States? Which is what Jen Psaki said the day he took office, that this administration and this president would be the most transparent in history. Is that transparency? So, after a spirited debate, members of the House Judiciary voted 18-15. That's how close things are in Congress, by the way, on May 16th, yesterday, to approve a resolution to hold Mr. Garland in contempt for refusing to provide impeachment investigators with the recordings in defiance of congressional subpoenas. Now, the House Oversight Committee followed suit hours later, voting 24-20 to approve their own resolution for the same thing. And so the measures would need to pass the full House before a referral is made to the Justice Department. But whether House Speaker Mike Johnson will bring the resolution to the floor is unclear, which is too bad. The Justice Department, you might say this is all political game playing, but it's necessary political game playing. I think that needs to be brought out. So the Justice Department didn't respond to a request for comment by press time. The vote came hours after the president, at Mr. Garland's request, asserted executive privilege over the recordings, precluding prosecution of the Attorney General for his noncompliance. So the Attorney General calls up Joe Biden and says, you got to sign this document that's coming over right now to protect my ass. And so the tapes were recorded during Robert Hur's investigation of President Biden's handling of classified documents. And although the special counsel concluded that the president had willfully retained and disclosed classified materials in violation of the law, he ultimately decided not to prosecute, reasoning that a jury would be sympathetic toward an elderly man with a poor memory. That's why Hur decided not to. He didn't decide to not prosecute Biden because he thought he was innocent. He said, we're not going to do it because he's an elderly man with a poor memory. Remember, the Democrats went apeshit over that. And on May 16th, yesterday, Republicans pointed that to that decision is a reason for them to hear the recordings for themselves. If our commander-in-chief is so incompetent that he cannot stand trial, if he's not fit to stand trial, then he's too incompetent, for God's sake, to be the leader of the most powerful nation on the face of the earth. So said Representative Jeff Von Drew, Republican, New Jersey. Do you agree or disagree with that statement? If he is not if he's so incompetent that he's not fit to stand trial, then is he competent enough to be the president of the United States? So they mark up the resolution to hold Garland in contempt. And if President Biden is competent and special counsel Hur's assessment was correct, then President Biden should face a jury for his crimes of mishandling classified materials, right? If he's competent to be president, why can't he stand trial? So what's the big deal? While the Justice Department has provided the judiciary and the oversight and accountability committees with transcripts of the solicited recordings, the department has refused to turn over the recordings themselves. And Democrats on the Judiciary Committee argued that investigators don't need the recordings as they already have the transcripts of the interviews. But transcripts, Republican members argued, can be altered. And they don't convey other information, such as the speaker's inflections, his tone of voice, whether or not he stumbled. It could have taken Joe Biden 4 minutes to say, "I'm not guilty of this," but on the on a recording. But when you type it out, "I'm not guilty of this," you don't get the inflection, you don't get the stumbling, you don't get the incoherency. So transcripts alone are not sufficient evidence of the state of the president's memory, right? And let me ask you, if they're arguing on the left that, well, you've already got the transcripts, that's enough, that should be enough. Well, why are they arguing to withhold the recordings? If the recordings are the same as the transcript, just go, here they are. Here you go. Why? We've already answered that. The White House has a track record of altering the transcripts. That's Jim Jordan said, citing the White House's past scrubbing of the president's gaffes from transcripts of his speeches. By the way, recordings can be edited too. I've done it. When John Ward and I used to do Intrepid Radio and we pre-recorded, I would take John Ward was very good at, brother, that, and I used to go through and cut out a lot of those, and it would shorten the broadcast by about 5 minutes, which was okay. But I used to edit out some of the bad ones. And one day I actually put up a video, and you can find it on this YouTube channel. If you scroll down and you find recordings with John and I, you can find it somewhere where I've got a whole 3 or 4 minute video I did of John Ward saying, "ah." And so it's almost frustrating to listen to, but it's fun. It was done in fun. And you listen to and all you hear is John Ward says, "Yes, well, yeah, oh, and it goes on for almost 4 minutes. So it's fantastic. I'll find the link and give it to you. But the transcript was produced by Robert Hur's office, and Hur was appointed by Donald Trump, and he's a Republican appointee. The notion that somehow this transcript is fake is a wild, insane conspiracy theory, is what he said. That's Ted Lieu, who's a Democrat in California. He said there's no evidence whatsoever that transcripts had been doctored. Now, Mr. Lieu went on to suggest that it's Lieu, not Loo, not as in like loo, like in toilet. But he went on to suggest that Republicans only wanted the transcript so they could smear President Biden over his stuttering problem. Oh, that's it. See, when Biden goes, it's his stuttering, right? Yeah, we all know that. Meanwhile, Representative Eric I screwed a Chinese spy Swalwell, Democrat in California, charged that the move to hold Mr. Garland in contempt was a political stunt to benefit former President Donald Trump. And so this is about doing everything to help Donald Trump, who you see as your client, who a New York criminal trial sees as a defendant, to help him win an election. So I have no interest in playing this game. The American people have no interest in playing this game, Mr. Swalwell said. Yeah, well, Mr. Swalwell, swallow this. You're an idiot, okay? We can see right through you. But Mr. Von Drew dismissed the mention of President Trump as a distraction. You're just trying to change the issue. You're trying to distract it. That's not why we're here, he said, holding that President Biden's fitness for office is a pressing concern that the committee needs to scrutinize. And by the way, if it's not a big deal, as the other side says, because we have the transcripts, well, we do have the transcript. So why do you care so much about us getting the audio? What's the big deal? And Mr. Johnson, Speaker of the House, seemed to provide his own answer to that question earlier in the day at a news conference. He said, President Biden is apparently afraid for the citizens of this country and everyone to hear those tapes. They obviously confirm what the special counsel has found and would likely cause, I suppose, in his estimation, such alarm of the American people that the president is using all of his power to suppress their release. So in moving forward, President Biden's legal counsel, Ed Siskel, advised both committees on the morning of May 16th, that executive privilege had been invoked and accused the chairman of political partisanship. He said, the absence of a legitimate need for the audio recordings lays bare your likely goal to chop them up, distort them, use them for partisan political purposes, he wrote. Demanding such sensitive and constitutionally protected law enforcement materials from the executive branch because you want to manipulate them for potential political gain is inappropriate, end quote. Now, he doesn't know they're going to do that, but that's his political case. And so in his letter to President Biden, the attorney general's cited reason for withholding the recordings was that their release would have deleterious effects, quote unquote, on the integrity of similar law enforcement investigations down the road. So, urging the president to assert executive privilege, Mr. Garden added that he did not think the White House committees, or that the House committees, could overcome such an assertion if the matter wound up in court. And so, typically, with the full House's approval, a contempt of Congress citation could be sent to the appropriate U.S. attorney to pursue charges. But in this case, the assertion of executive privilege means that Mr. Garland is going to be shielded from prosecution pending a legal challenge. And the Oversight and the Accountability Committee is slated to hold its own markup of another resolution to hold Mr. Garland in contempt. That was for today. That was slated. So there you go. Boom. So I go back to my original question. Are we experiencing the most transparent presidency in the history of the presidency in the United States? Or are we not? And it's something we all know. It's like I'm just beating a dead horse here. We all know Biden is not fit to be the president of the United States. And if he is deemed by the special counsel to be not fit to testify in court, then he's certainly not fit to be the president of the free world, the leader of the free world. What say you? You got opinions? Now's the time to call in. Could have called in all through the show. Nobody did, but you can now. Barbie D says, dang, Scotty. Oh, I saw that. We'll catch the replay. Good night again, Barbie D. What are some of your comments? Let's see. JP says $53 today. Oh, fill in your gas tank? Yep. The price issue is due not only to inflation, but also due to having switched to a fiat currency system. Yes, I agree. It's also due to the fact we don't produce our own oil anymore. So, yeah, and that's not his actual name. I just said that to be funny. I knew that. I knew you said. I didn't at first. And I thought, is he Ben-Hur? And I thought, no. I'd have heard that, and then it stuck in my head. So I got it. Van Drew is the New Jersey guy that switched parties. Yes, he is. It's because of the way the party's acting, I'm pretty sure. What else have you got to say? Folks, you can state your opinion. You can call into this show. Amanda, if you're out there, you should call into the show and say hi if you're still out there. So it's open. It's open. I'm going to post the invite, and then we're going to take, about a minute break, a minute, maybe 2 minutes, something like that. Here is the link if you want to call in. It shows up at the bottom of my screen over here. I can see you lined up down here when you call in, and we'll talk about some of this stuff for a little bit. All right. So let's take a little break. I'll come right back. You can take your little pee break or get something to drink or do something, whatever you need to do. So here we go. We're going out. So I can't say goodbye to the radio audience. I was going to say the radio audience, live long and prosper, but you know what? We'll be right back. Everybody just stick around. We'll come back after this.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid radio program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Hey folks, this is Scotty Roberts, and this is the Intrepid radio broadcast. I've been broadcasting for about 20 years now, covering such topics as science, politics, the paranormal, weird science, weird world history, archaeology, and the paranormal. Everything from ghosts to cryptids to creepy things that go bump in the night. So every week I bring you 3 new episodes. Come and join my channel and also be a patron to this site. So see the details below, and we'll see you here. By the way, I want you all to know I did that all in one take. Let's go to the next one. Dave, I love you, brother.
I miss you too.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep,
Did you guys hear that?
I heard that.
I miss you, Dave. Well, and welcome to the captain's cabin. Well, it's been a long week, good week, a quiet week on my end. You know, when you work like me for myself and I do project work, Suzy Q, pop it. When you work for yourself like me, there are times where you go, whoa, and there's times where it goes, whoa, you know, you ride that roller coaster. So it's been a low ebb this week, hoping to pick that up very soon into the summer months. So need to. So if you need a book illustrated, you need a book designed, you need a book written, you need graphic design work, blah, 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 logos, everything, come on over. I'll do them for you. It's what I do. I've been doing it for 40 years. More than that. I started when I was 17 years old, and I wish I still had any of them. I actually filled out a resume today for a temporary position for Harper. Was it Harper Books? I may have it right here. Yeah, it was HarperCollins Publishers. They were looking for an art director for children's books and gifts and things like that. And so I filled out the resume, I put out my resume, and I said, hey, I've done all that for a long time. And hopefully it's remote because I could work it from right here. And they're down in Nashville. But that's the kind of thing I do. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's slow. So, you know, if you're in that market or know anybody, and that's, of course, there's a lot of independent authors that I do work for. So that's where that comes in. So, and I was going nowhere with that other than to say, hey, we're back. And so if anybody wants to talk tonight and talk about the topics at hand that we did tonight, or anything maybe a little different or a little related to the topic, would be kind of fun. But you've all got the link. You know how to call in and you know how to talk. And so we've got about roughly 35 minutes of this broadcast left. So let's see what you do. And and if you don't come in, we'll do other stuff. I got other stuff going on. You know what I'll do until we get something? Some of you have heard this before. I will, as you all know, this is my latest book. It came out, a year and a half plus ago now. The Sword and the Clay. I illustrated this, designed it, wrote it. I'm just going to read the opening of this for you again because it's there. You can go to The Sword in the Clay, just like the title, theswordintheclay.com. And you can avail yourself of this book and read a little bit more about it. Here's how this goes. It starts off this way. And I'll tell you, this is I got to put on my post cataract cheaters, which is not much more than readers on the bottom, but I need them. I put in my little preface, the story you're about to read is true. Well, to be honest, only parts of it are true. The parts about Will Bird and his brother Steve are definitely true. And Will's personal accounts of supernatural visitations and finding an old sword in the mud at Amiens, France, are also true. I've been as truthful as I can be, despite a few artistic embellishments, in retelling the facts as written by Will Bird in his personal memoirs of memoir of his experiences in World War I, called Ghosts Have Warm Hands. The part of the story that is not true is the part about Marius Abruzzo. That's him on the cover of the book. That's the character right there, the Roman centurion Marius Abruzzo. The part in this story that's not true is the part about Marius Abruzzo and his two brothers. Though in saying that they are not that they are untrue, I feel as if I might be misleading you a bit. While I've striven to be as accurate and historically faithful to the times in which they lived, the Abruzzo brothers are complete fiction, a necessary speculative fabrication in an otherwise echoing void of who, what, where, and why. And while they may not be real people bolstered by real historical records, I cannot say that they or someone like them did not exist. And while I'm an historian who relies on facts and dates, anthropology, and reliable archaeology, I have also learned to wait for that still small voice. You know what that is, and you recognize it when it speaks. You may say, it's God or gods, goddesses or ancestors, consciousness, the great spirit, or the universe catching your ear. All I know for sure is that this story flowed as if it was being guided. I am satisfied with that, and I know you will be too. That's my from the author bit as you get into the book. So, this is how the book starts. And I like this, and I don't get to read as much to my kids anymore because they don't like it as much. That's part of the, I think, the age that we live in. My older kids, my twins were 32. My son, who's 23, they loved being read to. Flynn even loves it. But for the most part, my two girls, 12 and 9, they're not into it. They want to watch TV or get on their TikTok or something. And so I don't get to read quite as much. But here's how the book starts. The world had gone mad and was at war with itself. The year was 1914, and young men from nearly every country had enlisted in armies and gone off to fight. Many would never come home from this war to end all wars. Steve Bird of the Canadian 25th Battalion was one of them, shattered to pieces by a German mine after a year of fighting in France, far from the green rolling hills and rocky coastlines of home. Nova Scotia had truly lost one of its finest, and East Mapleton one of its favored, now honored sons. And Will Bird had lost his younger brother. This is the first illustration in the book here, by the way. Will Bird, he's working in the fields in Saskatchewan, and the narrative will tell you about what he's seeing there in the fields. So it goes on. William Richard Bird, Will to his family and friends, had been working on a farm in Saskatchewan nearly 2,500 miles from home when the telegram bearing news of his little brother's death reached him. Though he honored his brother's sacrifice, he was gutted to the core. Dad's passing from pneumonia years before had been bad enough, but he thought he would always have his little brother. Overwhelmed, Will let the telegram fall to the floor. The words were just too uncanny. Only a few days before, while working far out in the fields, Will had seen what seemed to be a ghostly apparition of Steve dressed in his uniform. Blinking hard, Will had quickly dismissed the vision as a trick of the eyes and the rays of the sunlight glinting off the wheat. Receiving the tragic news, though, he was less certain that it hadn't been real. Will immediately dropped his harvesting tools, hopped a train back to East Mapleton. Even though the harvesting money was good and he had hoped to return home with $300, a goodly sum for a season's work, none of that mattered now. Steve was gone, and his death threw a black shroud over the excitement and exuberance Will had felt when he left on what was known nationally as the harvest excursion to Western Canada. Life back home in East Mapleton had been good, sweet, and quaintly provincial, but after pneumonia took his father, Will had decided that the best thing to do was go west, harvesting crops on the wide prairies to help support his family and widowed mother. A year earlier, his brother Steve had left his architectural draftsman trade and enlisted with the Canadian Expeditionary Force to fight in the burgeoning conflict in Europe, a proud young man willing to die for his country. The train ride over the great expanse of Canadian prairie seemed an eternity. He just wanted it to be done and over, but as the time clickety-clacked away, Will mulled over his options for what to do next. By the time he disembarked the train in Nova Scotia, Will had determined to honor his brother and his country by taking Steve's place and enlisting with the Canadian Expeditionary Forces, the 42nd Battalion, the Royal Highlanders of Canada, who were redesignated as the Black Watch after the war. At the outbreak of the war, Will had attempted to enlist alongside Steve, but he'd been turned down due to his hockey teeth, which he had broken while participating in Canada's favorite sport. Like it or not, as the oldest, you're the family patriarch, Steve had said to Will as they stepped off the front porch and into the backyard, catching the late afternoon sun. Broken teeth or no, leave the job of soldiering up to me. You stay right here and take care of mother and family matters. And by the way, here's my illustration of Will and Steve Bird. Photograph. I took that from a photograph of them. That is Will over on, this is Steve, the little brother, and Will over here. So, why should you risk your life and have all the adventure while I stay back and mind the store, so to speak? Will replied good-naturedly. Besides, with me over there, this war will be over much quicker. What are you going to do, gum the Germans to death? Steve let out a hoot at his joking insult. They're broken, Will retorted in equally good nature, not missing. He grabbed Steve in a headlock, the move he had always used to establish his older brother's superiority since they were kids. The brothers tumbled to the ground in faux scuffling, laughing uproariously as each attempted to pin the other's shoulders to the dirt. Will, who had always seemed to win in these mock conflicts, ended up on top, straddling Steve's rib cage as he finally forced his younger brother's shoulders down. You're getting tougher, soldier boy, Will puffed, out of breath for the wrestle, but you'll never be tougher than me. I let you win that time, old man, Steve came back with the only insult he could think of. They both laughed as Will let up his pinhold and sat back, his knees still on either side of Steve's chest. He grew quiet and said with all sincerity, I want to be there to protect you, you know, watch over you. That's what big brothers are supposed to do. Maybe I'd have to watch over you, Steve laughed and sputtered out the word you as he pushed up on Will's knees and sent him rolling off into the grass. Draw, draw, Will yelled out, putting his hands up in the air, then stood and grabbed Steve's hands, helping him to his feet. I don't want to lose you, little brother, Will said, throwing his arms around Steve's shoulders. I won't be there with you, and I want you to come home. Steve pushed Will back and held him at shoulders length, and held his shoulders at arm's length. looking his older brother straight in the eyes. Steve's voice was calm and firm. I assure you, brother, I will fight bravely and live to return to the glorious welcome home parade that you throw for me, he said, and then he grinned broadly. But if for any reason I don't make it home from the war, maybe I'll find a way somehow to come and whisper in your ear. The brothers embraced tightly, slapping each other on the back as young men are wont to do. There's Wilbur in his uniform. Nearly 6 months to the day after Steve's death, with his bonnet on his head and his kilt about his knees, Will set foot for the first time on French soil. Having agreed to get his teeth fixed, he was finally permitted to enlist, feeling the full weight of duty and honor, self-sacrifice, discipline, and obedience. Most young men stepping into foreign war for the first time believed military service would be a glorious, life-shaping adventure. And in Canada, part of the British Empire, the glory was all for God, king, and country. For Will's part, he believed he owed it to his lost brother. That's the opening of the book. Time we got. It's only 10:36. This book is only 8,000 words. I'll hit you with the beginning of the second chapter here because I think it's good. It jumps time frame now. We're going back 2,000 years earlier. Dawn was a golden pink sliver of sky across the eastern horizon, and much to his chagrin, Marius Abruzzo hadn't slept a wink all night. His insomnia wasn't born of any fear or dreaded harbinger, but of excitement and enthusiasm. Today, he and his two younger brothers were to leave their home in the rugged interior country of central Italia and travel to the Roman city of Pentima, joining the armies of Julius Caesar, whom many believed would soon rule Rome after he quelled the rebellious Gauls to the north. He lay most of the night staring up at the dark ceiling above his bed, his mind engulfed with thoughts of family, honor, duty, and valor. His parents' vineyards and wheat fields were well manned with Grecian laborers, who all bore loyalty to his kindly father and would themselves benefit from the estate running smoothly and profitably in the absence of his brothers. Marius quickly dismissed from his mind any worries for his parents' well-being, confident that he and his brothers would serve bravely and bring heaps of glory to the family name. I see you out there, JP. Hang on, I'll get to you in a couple minutes here. Marius sat upright and swung his feet to the cool slate floor, kissing his fingertips and touching them to the head of the small earthen deity that sat on a low stand beside his bed. Rolling the figuring god into a swath of soft cloth, he looped it with a leather tie and tucked it into his travel bag. He left the door to his room open and strode across the garden atrium to the common room with the green-tiled floor, where his two brothers, Luigius and Cestus, were already offering up farewells to their parents. Mother stood there in the midst, indefatigably shedding tears over the departure of her three boys. As the matron of the family, she usually modeled great dignity of character and bearing, but she suddenly was struck by just how much she missed her little boys playing at her feet, especially now that they were grown into strapping young men ready to serve in Caesar's army. Father, the head of the household, the paterfamilias, seemed rather stoic, that is, until Marius clasped his forearm in a somewhat formal farewell. In a sudden, fluid rush of emotion, the Abruzzo patriarch brushed away Marius's hand and drew his son in tightly, grasping him with both arms. After a long moment, he held his eldest son out at arm's length, locked eyes, and said, "Velis et remus, my son, with sail and with oars," was father's old way of telling Marius to give all he had to what he was about to undertake. He then drew in Luigius and Cestus, and hugged them with the strength of a bear, reminding them both of the times he would wrestle them to the ground and race them to the stables. Marius joined in, and the four of them stood in a circle with arms locked around each other's shoulders. Mother would soon feel left out completely if she didn't get her son's loving goodbyes. But she also understood that this was a moment for the four Abruzzo boys who stood in their locked huddle for several minutes, heads against heads, until they all began to build into laughter. Father said with finality, "For glory and honor, my sons." They each repeated their father's words. "For glory and honor, Father." "Be men worthy of Rome," Mother said, regaining her composure and maintaining her stalwart femininity in the proper Roman way. "Velete filii, discredite cum corde meo." Farewell, and know that you take my heart with you. I will ever beseech the gods on your behalf for your guidance and protection until I once again see your faces. Their farewells finished, the brothers Abruzzo passed the main doors to the outer court, where 3 horses laden with their gear were quietly waiting in the early morning sun. Before the brothers mounted, Marius stopped in his tracks and quietly told his brothers to be silent and still for a moment. That's where this illustration comes in. "Look around you, my brothers," Marius almost whispered. "This is our land, our place, our home." Forming a broad arc, the 3 stood together in silence and gazed around the place where they stood, taking it all in as if for the last time. Quietly, Marius drew his sword, a finely crafted Roman gladius, pointed to the sky, and then plunged it into the ground between the 3 of them. He stooped down and picked up a handful of rich black soil and rubbed it into his hands, nodding to his brothers to do the same. Putting his hand on the pommel of his gladius, he said, "Give me your hands, brothers." And they did, Luigius placing his hand over Marius's hand, then Cestus resting his on top. Marius looked them in the eyes. "Cum vita mea ut sanguine meo et anima mea," he said, "with power and authority, with my life and my blood and my soul," the brothers repeated. "We shall never leave each other's sides," Marius continued. "We will protect each other with all our strength and all the strength of the gods until the day we return home." Luigius and Cestus heartily repeated the vow, their hands still clasped atop Marius's sword, gritty with the soil of their home. With that, Marius sheathed his sword. The 3 mounted their horses and turned to the north, where the encampment of Julius Caesar sprawled across the Pentima Valley, bristling with the power of military genius, the raw energy of conquest, and the pure lifeblood of adventure. Boom. There you go. That's from The Sword and the Clay. That's the opening of the book. If you don't have it, you should go pick it up. It's over at theswordintheclay.com. And just to prove that I'm the author and the illustrator, that's me on the back. So there you go. All right. JP, I see, is here. Let's bring him in. JP, Jason, calling.
Hello.
Hello. How you doing? You all moved?
Well, define all moved.
Are you still in the old place?
No, I am in St. Louis.
You are in St. Louis.
Yeah,
So you're all moved physically.
I'm all moved physically. I am not unpacked. So I have.
That's called settled. That's moving.
Yes.
Is just moving of shit. Settling is
right.
Unboxing it and putting it in place. So
All shit has moved.
All shit has moved.
Well, okay, that's not entirely true.
Still waiting for the truck?
No. All my household goods are here. But Herbie and the Ford are still in North Dakota.
All right.
They're at my friend's place. He's storing them for me while I work on finding a good shipper.
Yes.
And hopefully.
Yeah, it looks a little stripped down in there. Here, let me sit on this stool in the middle of my room.
Yes. Hang on. There's something.
This doubles as my bed when I put the pillow on it.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, it's certainly good to be moved. That's for sure. I was getting stressed out. That's an understatement, actually. Um, just with everything going on and trying
Have you
to
been
do
into the
things
new
at work.
office yet?
No, not yet. Not yet. I got here at about 10 last night after
Oh.
leaving at around.
I think I saw the picture of the house as you pulled up.
Yeah. I left, I think when it was like 5:30, maybe somewhere in that ballpark after filling up and grabbing some drinks and snacks yesterday
Yes.
morning. So it was a good 13 plus hours of actual drive time. So
Chuck Thurston says, I have too much crap to think of moving again. Chuck, I have said many times, we are about as mobile as the state of Texas. So imagine packing up the state of Texas and moving it a few miles. That's I hate moving. I never want to have to move again. But the problem is I don't want to live here the rest of my life in this house. I want to pick up a couple of acres and build the house we want to build and then settle into that. And I hope to do that before my kids are too old to. I want to do that so my kids, when they're adults, go, that was our home. They remember that place, the one that's not built yet. So hopefully we can do that soon.
yeah,
Oh,
I could.
St. Louis.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm in an older section of town, but it's a nicer section of town.
Yeah.
So yeah, like this whole neighborhood was built in the 1950s. So, but it's pretty well maintained. So
Well, that's good.
yeah, those are probably ambulances coming from back that way across
Sure.
55. That's once you cross over 55, it becomes an entirely different planet.
Yes. How's your weather there? You're sitting outside in shirt sleeves. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, weather's good. We had a bunch of rain kind of mid to late
Yep.
day, like or early afternoon.
I saw
Good
that on the
Lord.
weather map today.
Yeah, it was raining cats and dogs.
We had a thunderstorm here today, which was kind of nice. It was a small one, but it was like 82 degrees here today and a thunderstorm.
Yeah, it's probably at least in the 70s today, maybe a little higher. And I'd run up to Target to just grab some house cleaning stuff and things like that. And my dad called. Oh no!
Oh, hey, oh.
After I got back in the car, my dad called, and it was raining so hard that he was like, "I can barely understand what you're saying."
Wow.
So, yeah, it was really coming down, and it did that for a little while, and then gradually bled off and got nice again. So
Nice.
it definitely cooled it off. That's true, or that much is true.
Nice. It's supposed to be in the 80s all weekend here, I think. So
that'll be
it's
nice.
sunny tomorrow, which is nice.
Yeah.
All the rain does is bring in the humidity.
Right. Yeah. No, that's very, very true. That's very true. It is nice though. If you get a good rain, it'll knock the temperature edge off a good bit.
Right.
And it was getting pretty warm. Sorry, I'm just trying to
That's okay.
fix
You
my
know, that
camera.
reminds me, I just saw my kids and I the other day were watching at dinner time or sometime. We turned on one of those videos on YouTube on the big TV, watching, the 20 most spookiest videos of, or whatever. And it's got everybody's home things it's like America's most funniest videos for the paranormal. Is that you whistling? So,
Sorry, that was just
but there was some woman filming with her phone, and she said, and there's these things, these tappings, and this, and then she's telling her story. Then, as she's talking to it, her phone tips over. You see the ceiling, and she goes, you hear her go, "Oh, there they go again." And I'm like, I looked at my girls and I said, yeah, her phone fell over. That's a ghost. So, there they go again.
yeah, probably not. Probably not. Yeah,
So,
but you were talking earlier about
yes, sir.
the inflation stuff, and
Yeah.
The inflation's not only due to like how we spend, and things like that, but I really think that there's something about the fact that we switched to a fiat currency from a precious metal standard. I think
Yes.
I think that that's one of those things that for a certain period of time after you do something like switching from a precious metal standard, gold standard, silver standard to a fiat currency, you're gonna see inflation.
Well, when you have a currency that is not backed by any kind of intrinsic value whatsoever,
Other
and
than the
it's
government,
just
yeah.
saying, this little piece of paper right here, this is now worth $20 if you put that in
Right.
your pocket and go to the store. Well, there's nothing backing it.
Exactly.
So, and therefore, yeah, of course that's going to cause inflation.
Well, it's interesting when you look at that. It's like what would be the likelihood of being able to reverse any of it by switching back to a standard? But
going back is always the tough part.
right, and it's like I don't even know if we can. I mean, hell, in 1964 when Reagan gave his Goldwater speech, God, I reference that a lot.
You do. That's all right.
He said we've got however many millions upon millions of dollars in the reserve. We don't own an ounce. It's like,
Right.
yeah. I think going back would be kind of hard.
Yeah. So, I mean, and it's what can we do? There's the good questions is what happens if we get a different political train of thought in the office as president that's actually going to lead, has an administration that's going to do, if it's Trump or if it was somebody conservative,
Yeah.
what will Trump do if he gets in office to try to fix it? What can he do? Can he fix it? Is it fixable?
That's the $64,000 question, Scotty.
That's it. So,
I do think it is rather hilarious that you have the you're mentioning the classified documents.
yeah,
And you have the whole thing of basically sweeping under the rug everything with Biden. Like there's a look, it comes down to one of these things where it's like, can you do something? Can you do an executive order? Can you do whatever? Sure. It's legal. But it's like I've brought up in the past on other topics, just because it's legal, it doesn't mean it's right.
sure.
Like ethically, morally, in terms of look, if you have these documents, you screwed up, say, you know what, I have these documents, I screwed up, and that's the end of it. And you know what, I'm going to rectify it. And whatever they deem I need to do, I'm going to do. That's what you do.
Yeah.
That's the honorable, ethical, moral thing to do. When you start throwing in the legal stuff, that's where you can get into some weird, wacky gray waters.
Right.
So it's I don't know. That's a really frustrating one, and it's like it also turns into that rules for thee, not for me. kind of mindset. And again, even if it's legally okay, it just smacks of that mentality.
Right.
And that bugs the living daylights out of me.
Yeah.
By
the way, Chuck says Biden handed over his documents. He didn't try to hide them. Maybe not once he was caught and asked for them. And remember, after they asked for him and he turned things over, he kept finding more that he didn't turn over. And how many decades had he been collecting them?
They were all out there next to his green Corvette.
What's that?
They were all out there next to his green 1967 Corvette convertible.
That's right.
I've always wanted.
I keep my garage locked, he said. So,
I keep my garage locked.
My point with that is that would he have turned anything over if he hadn't been found out that he had them? I don't think so.
I don't think he would have.
He didn't go and volunteer them.
Right.
Somebody said, "Hey, he's got some here."
And I think it was a tactical move or a strategic move, depending on what level you want to look at, because Trump had just got hemmed up by that stuff, and then it's like, "Hey, you just did the same thing." Ah, crap.
And you didn't do the same thing because he didn't have the authority as the president of the United States to declassify them.
Right.
So
he was a vice president, so he didn't have that same kind of declassification.
He didn't have that. And he was a senator before that.
Right.
Senators don't have that kind of authority.
Yeah. Well, and stuff with classifications gets different, especially declassification stuff too, because you have a classifying authority and you have a declassifying authority for every document, every series of documents, all that stuff. And if you're not the declassifying authority, you can't declassify it. You have to request it to be declassified. So, now with presidential matters, like actual president,
he is a classifying authority. Yeah. So, yeah, I get it.
Well, look, like I've said, you guys start a grassroots movement. You get me in office, I'll probably be assassinated 6 months into my tour.
Yeah, 6 months.
But look, I'll release all the UFO stuff, man. I'll just release it.
Yeah, really.
You want to know about Kennedy? All right, here we go.
How many presidents have said that they wanted to do that, or people
and
around them, and they just never do? Is that because they get there and find out there's something that's preventing me? There's somebody I'm being prevented from being able to release these, and I can't talk about that.
There's a quote from Trump. Look it up to get it verified. I can't remember where I read it.
I probably know what you're going to say.
Yeah, he said, so I saw all this stuff, and yeah, I could put it out there, but if you had seen it, you wouldn't want to put it out there either.
Wow.
And it's like, okay, and I think that was dealing with stuff with like the JFK and RFK and all that, but like it's like, God.
Right.
Yeah. What do you do with that?
Exactly. And by the way, Chuck, they both had them. You had a president who had the ability to declassify them. You had a vice president, former senator, who didn't have the authority to declassify them. They may have had them both, and maybe they're both guilty. But one is so why is one rated and the other one isn't? Why are we? And if we are saying that Biden is too old and frail and mentally incompetent to stand trial, why is he not too old and mentally incompetent to serve as president? There's the big question that this all brings up. So.
Chuck pulled up something there saying that they were in DOD approved, safes. I guess he was basically saying that Trump had them in DOD secure safes.
Well, the DOD came in the DOD, the Department of the Archives, National Archives people came and told him how to lock those things up, and he did. He complied.
Right, but that's the thing is like I remember them talking about like boxes in a bathroom or something. Was there any truth to that?
Well, you know what I saw?
That's not a DOD
recently saw
approved. Or
something about that. Was that it wasn't like, hey, honey, I'm going to put this behind the towel rack. It wasn't like that. It was, I think, a portion of the hotel that they were no longer using as a public restroom or a room, and that he had redesignated the area. They put the doors on and the locks on, and that became a storeroom.
Right.
Because it was impregnable from exterior walls and whatever parameters they put on it.
I know for all of my documents that I had to have it all in safes.
Yeah.
And God, those safes were a pain in the butt, let me tell you.
I'll bet.
Whoever designed the lock system on that, like, I'm all about security, don't get me wrong, but those things sucked. The people who are allowed to see the documentation should be able to easily get into the documentation.
Yeah.
Super frustrating. You get something where you turn the tumbler too far and then it has to reset, or sometimes it wouldn't even, recognize the combo. I'd have to enter it in like 5 more times. It's like, good God, dude. So, but those are big, hulking safes. I think they were like 400 and 500 pounds each, empty. So it's like, sometimes I kind of wonder, like, what the level of actual, like, security for those documents. Because I know what they were for mine. But yeah, it gets interesting.
Maybe this is Chuck brought up something about declassification of DOD and DOE documents. And we'll kind of wrap the show with this, because maybe we'll do another show on this particular topic. But there is a president can declassify documents, but a formal procedure is required for certain kind of documents. The president has to obtain the archivist of the United States written opinion on the proposed disposal. The originating agency then assigns a declassification date. We got those 25-year dates, the 50-year dates, the 75-year dates. Right. But under the U.S. Constitution, the president, as commander-in-chief, is given very broad powers to classify and declassify such information, often through the use of executive orders. He has the ability to do that. Yeah. So that's where you got to look at all these cases and go, well, can he do this or can he not on this particular document? Yeah, it's that's an interesting one, and I kind of want to. Sometimes I kind of want to dig into that one more, just to better understand the process of the presidents, because I know if I wanted to declassify something, I had to go through a whole process. I had to, submit documents for declassification, and I had all kinds of annual histories, from the unit I was working at that fell under classified, because it was stuff that dealt with Stark Treaty and, the nuke programs and stuff like that, which on the surface, everybody knew, everybody knows that, or knew at that time that, hey, we were a nuke base, whether it was missiles or bombs or things like that. But, getting into the specifics, that's where it's classified. Yes. And it was a whole process of like having to, these documents, I got to set up these document numbers. Here's what I'm trying to get declassified, all that. And it has to go for approval. And so but it's also very, very different when, yes, it's good to be the king. You know what I mean? It's, yes. To borrow one from Mel Brooks. Yes. I've got in front of me, I looked up something while you were talking, fact-checking presidential authority. And he said, well, this says most national security legal experts dismissed Trump's suggestion that he could declassify documents simply by thinking about it. But they dismissed that notion. But as an ABA legal fact check posted on October 17th, it explains legal guidelines support his contention that presidents have broad authority to formally declassify almost any document that are not statutorily protected while they're in office. And the system of declassifying national security documents is largely a bureaucratic process, and it's used by the federal government to control how executive branch officials handle information whose release could cause the country harm. And so the government has prosecuted cases for both mistaken and deliberate mishandling of information. And under the U.S. Constitution, the president, as commander-in-chief, is given broad powers to classify and declassify this kind of information, often through use of executive orders. So it's very interesting. It's a broad topic. It's an interesting topic.
Oh, it definitely is. I think probably one of the best things that could possibly come out of those situations is the government re-examines declassification and then puts in some specifications.
Yeah.
As much as I hate bureaucracy, when you start finding, holes in the logic and loopholes in the system and things like that, it can create some problems. So probably plug the holes in the ship. It's like we may not be able to do much classification or much prosecution of those individuals at this point, but you can certainly make it so that subsequent individuals aren't able to, work around stuff.
Yeah.
And keep everything kosher. So,
and by the way, DOE, the president can declassify them, but he's got to go through a process. So,
for DOE stuff?
Yep.
Versus DOD?
Yes.
Huh. Wonder what
Department of Energy.
Wonder what the impetus is on that one. That's interesting.
Don't know. We'll talk about it another time.
Yeah.
Because it's 11:08, and I'm going to go.
Sorry, I wasn't more entertaining, folks. It's been a long move so far.
Hey, it was entertaining enough. I appreciate the fact that you'd come on, being fresh in your new home.
Yeah, well, everything's still in boxes, so it's not like I have much else to do, right?
Chuck, I don't know if you could say it was treason if it harms the country. I think, though, that it might be prosecutable. But if it harmed the country and it was deliberate harm of the country, he could get prosecuted for that. I think he could get prosecuted if it was not deliberate harm for the country.
Well, in treason, too, and, somebody might want to look this one up, but I seem to recall treason also including that element of intent.
Intent, yes.
If you screw up and because you're an absent-minded idiot, that's not exactly treasonous.
Accidental traitor. I'm the accidental traitor. I don't know if that exists.
Yeah,
it does have to come with intent.
Yeah,
which is
intent would be a big part of it.
So, all right, we're going to leave that on this note because I don't want to. We keep talking about it; it's going to expand. Jason, thank you for coming on, brother.
Always a pleasure.
I will catch you perhaps Sunday or next week. So,
sounds good.
All right, brother.
All right.
Have a good night at the new place.
Thanks. Take her easy, guys.
See you later. Everybody else, Chuck, everybody's still sitting in the chat room. Thanks for being, hey, field guy. He's going to watch the replay, he says. And I saw you sneak in, and I saw couple of other people slipped in that I missed, came in under the radar. So Claudette was here, and I didn't see her till late in the game. So if you're still here, how you doing? Howdy, greetings. And right now, we're going to end it. We're going to bring this luscious program to an end. So thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of it. I would love it if you would like to support this show. Click the little join button down below here somewhere, and you can join. Or you can go over to my Patreon and join over there. That helps us do what we're doing. If you can't do anything like that, hit the like button in Instagram, in YouTube, and that helps our algorithms at least a little bit. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for being part of the program. We'll see you again on Sunday morning. You have a great Saturday. And until then, live long and prosper.